Today on the Conscious Fertility Podcast, I have my colleague, Lindsay Goodwin, and I'm excited to talk to her because we have a lot of similarities in our paths and how we treat. And you'll find out that we're both members of the ABRM. This is the Acupuncture and TCM Board of Reproductive Medicine. Lindsay and I are both trained in NLP and hypnotherapy. Yeah, I just think we resonate with how we like to approach health in general. And so I'm so excited to have Lindsay talk about her journey, what she does, and to talk about things like, I think I saw in your bio, spirit babies and medium, things that I've heard about, but I really don't have a deep understanding. So Lindsay, welcome to the Conscious Fertility Podcast.
Well, thank you so much, Lauren. I'm so excited to be here and share everything that we have planned in this great conversation.
Now, I have your bio here that I want to read because you've done a few things and you have some cool background. So I kind of want to use that as our jumping off, just so people know who you are. And then I got questions for you, if that's all right.
Sounds good.
Sounds good. All right. So Lindsay's a fertility support and reproductive medicine expert, and she uniquely blends spiritual and energy healing techniques with scientific approaches for a truly holistic experience. She has credentials as a certified master life coach for self-mastery, a certified NLP therapist, a hypnotherapist, a licensed acupuncturist, and a board certified herbalist. And Lindsay brings a unique, comprehensive approach to health, personal growth, and awakening the power within. She is certified as a fellow of the ABRM for reproductive medicine, and she's a spiritual fertility medium. So those are one of the things I want you to define for me. She uniquely empowers clients to overcome health, emotional, and mindset challenges, which I think is so important in this day and age. She achieves this through a blend of evidence-based practices and energy tools, helping individuals overwhelmed by stress, life's demands, and fertility obstacles to conquer anxiety, setbacks, and past traumas. Her work fosters new patterns that usher in joy, fulfillment, freedom, and renewed energy to hope. Who would want some of that? And Lindsay's profound personal transformation further enriches her expertise. Now, this is Lindsay where I want to start with. Lindsay had a near-death experience which prompted her awakening to the divine power within us, all leading her to integrate science, consciousness, and the unseen energies for healing and abundance. Her leadership in higher consciousness, mindset, and physical health has guided countless individuals to reclaim their lives and achieve a state of harmony, growth, and fulfillment. Lindsay, I want to start with your personal experience, because when we talked off camera a few weeks ago, you actually had a near-death experience, and I'm really curious what happened and how has this influenced your journey and blending the spirituality into your reproductive medicine approach?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks so much, Lauren. So I had a near-death experience in 2017, and it was really interesting. During that time frame, I had already been spiritually awakening. So I was really starting to understand parts of myself that had been asleep for a long time. I am a born intuitive medium. So as a child, I've always known things, seen things, really had look into the unseen energies and understand things that I really didn't know how I understood them. So as a kid, I was very mature and just like I said, knew things that I didn't know how I knew them.
So I know you're going to talk about your near-death experience, but some of the things you say that are so like just second nature to you, from our listeners, maybe the first time hearing or like, what do you mean? So when you say you were an intuitive medium, what did that mean? What was your experience as a young child that you're aware that you were hearing or seeing or doing things? And what language or understanding do you have of that now as an adult and what you remember as a child?
Yeah, absolutely. Those are really good questions. So as a child, it's almost like I could hear people's thoughts. I would know things maybe that was going on with my family, that, limiting beliefs that people would have. There was words that I would want to use that just my body couldn't quite catch up to. Because there is a part of us that is a physical body, but there's also this part of us that is this infinite consciousness as well. So as a child, it was like I was wanting to work through that infinite consciousness and hadn't quite understood that I had this physical body. So I had this brain, this human brain going on. So I couldn't actually articulate some of the things that were coming through. I didn't know how to explain it. So there was that. And then there was also seeing spirits, seeing orbs, seeing energy, being able to just tune into things, know things. I've always been such a leader, being able to really help people to feel very empowered. And we can do this. Our imagination is incredible. We can create and be anything we want to. And so that was really me at about 5 years old. world. And so that's really what it is it's not, I'm not, I don't really like the word psychic. I don't really believe in telling the future. We do create our own realities. So I have a glimpse into energies, and being able to really more of like an energy channel. So things come in, I relay messages, but I'm not really a person that really necessarily likes to tell people their future. It's more about empowering you to be able to find those energies within yourself. And so I just have a higher understanding of things. And that's part of my job, is that I'm a guide to be able to awaken those powers within others that I'm meant to help.
Nice. Okay. We may go back to that. And I'm in a playful mood. When you said that you can hear or read people's thoughts, I was like, do I need to get my tinfoil out?
It's
Put
not
on my
like that.
head?
There's ethics. There's ethics. I've learned that over the years. I don't overstep people's boundaries. I've had several people ask me, for example, if I'm in an Uber or taxi, the taxi driver will actually ask me, "Are you reading my thoughts right now?" Absolutely not. I don't do that. If there are things that do come through and I feel it's important for someone to know, then I might say it gently and just kind of see where they're feeling. And if it feels like they don't want to know that information, then I just shut it off.
All right. Well, we may play at the end and do a little fun with this. So now I interrupted you because you were going to talk about your near-death experience, but you did say you're an intuitive medium, and I just wanted to kind of know what that meant from your definition. So thank you. And then I think our listeners are curious about your near-death experience and how this has influenced your life and what you do in practice.
Absolutely. So in 2017, I was robbed at gunpoint. And when that was happening, I had an out of body experience where I was experiencing angels, guides, and also this gold energy that was very warming. And it really took me out of my body. This energy that filled the entire room actually was coming from behind the gunman that had the gun to my back. And it's really interesting to know. I think other people that have had near death experiences or actually die and come back have found that you don't really think about what you think you're going to think about in that moment, that you could possibly, your life could end in the physical. And so that's really what was going on. Is it was like one of the most peaceful moments that I've ever experienced in my life. And so I made it out of that. Obviously, I'm here today. And so here to tell my story and to share with people. I think that there probably are a lot of people that have had sort of near-death experiences like that and maybe don't talk about it because they might think that people might think that they're crazy of what they experienced. And so we're experiencing a shift that people are really starting to be more open to those unseen energies. So you're seeing more of these stories come out where people are actually sharing their stories of these near-death experiences. So I have to say, for a while, I kind of was a little bit standoffish about sharing it because for fear of, I'm in the medical world. What will people think? That, I kind of have this energy sort of woo-woo thing going on, and how are they going to perceive this? And so I've just gotten to a point where it's what I do, and it's what I'm here for. And I speak to the audience that really, wants that. And so as far as integrating in it with fertility and reproductive medicine, what I found is that shortly after that near-death experience, I started receiving messages from babies. And it was that I was actually getting those messages when the babies were in the womb or when they actually were in the energy field, which is also known as aura, where I could actually see the baby and get messages about what the parents might need to do to bring them into the physical world, as well as when they were in the womb space, that in utero, that they actually would communicate with me and tell my mom to eat this, or I need this supplement, or we need to figure out how to do more, maybe yoga or something that they needed to help the mom in their journey and help them get into the world. And then when I actually will meet the babies, they remember me. And so we have this connection that I can't really explain, other than it's almost like it's just an understanding of each other when we meet each other. And when that started happening, I knew that my mind wasn't playing tricks on me, because how would these babies remember me if they didn't know exactly who I am and that I helped bring them into this world? And so I also have had many interactions with what I call spirit guides from this spirit baby realm, which I can explain more of what the spirit baby realm is, that have come to me in dreams and also visions that this is what you're here for. This is part of what you do, and you need to start doing it. So that was more kind of in the beginning when I was a little bit resistant after my near-death experience. Because again, it's, how do you integrate the two? I'm in an area that really hasn't been done before. We're just starting to get into this where we're starting to integrate energy into scientific sort of theories. And so it can be kind of unknown territory. It can be scary sometimes.
All right, so I gotta jump in for my skeptical side and my listener and for my listeners who maybe like are turning off the podcast because it's like, this is crazy, this is out there. So I got to give a little bit of credibility factor here and just reminding ourselves in this day and age at the time of the recording. We have episode 6 with Jill Bolte Taylor, who's a neuroanatomist, neuroscientist, who had a near-death experience. She wrote the book Stroke of Insight and Whole Brain Healing. So credibility factor, because she's a neuroscientist, went to this place like you talked about, your near-death experience of peace, and she goes into great detail. We have a whole episode on it. But I have to remind myself, because Lindsay, I live in this. I practice this. I have moments where I've tapped into this. And then right now, today, I'm in my left brain, and you're talking, I'm like, okay, switch the channel. This is too crazy. And I have to remind myself, oh yeah, I've had these experiences. I've met people who are credible in the materialistic world. I haven't had him on the show yet, but I'd love to have James Doty, who wrote Into the Magic Shop and Mind Magic, right? Another neuroscientist with near-death experience. So for the listeners that are out there, we often share, and I think Lindsay have said this before on other podcasts, that, science, actually Jill Bolte Taylor, who's a scientist, even said the scientific method is great, but it can't measure everything that is part of reality, which is the energies, which we're starting to learn. So for those that are like, what the hell? Yeah, my brain's doing that too. And I've even had some of these experiences, and yet here goes the doubting mind, right? That just shows you how our beliefs can really affect how we perceive reality. So I wanted to put that in there because there's probably people like starting to multitask and cook and do other things and not pay attention. Come on, guys, come back in here. I promise you, I think this is a good thing to listen to. So you start talking about spirit babies and talking to babies. And again, even for me, that's like really, like you said, like the babies know you. Well, how do you know they know you? Because if you're meeting these babies, I'm assuming they're pre-verbal still, right? So what do you mean by they know you? Actually, here's my 2-part question. One was, how do you know the babies know you? And 2 is, what do you do for the skeptics when you're introducing this work on consciousness and energy healing for them to help overcome the skepticism so they can be open and curious and jump into this work?
Well, those are really great questions. I totally understand where you're coming from. And I just have to say, I've been a skeptic myself, for years. It's taken me a long time to finally accept this. So I totally hear you on that. So it's probably part of the reason why it's happened, so that I can communicate with people that are skeptical about it and really understand both sides of the coin. So as far as the babies, it really is an intuitive feeling that I have, as well as eye contact. We can read a lot by the eyes, as well as emotions that they have. And so I can't really explain that totally how exactly they know, because yes, they're not communicating with me through words. They're communicating with me through energy. And so that's really how I know. And as far as, what was your second question that you asked?
Well, I was asking you about like the spirit guides, like how can somebody, sometimes it's just faith, right? You got to trust. I'm a fan for myself. This is just how Lorne Brown functions. I love talking to people and learning all these processes and their stories, but I've never been a fan of, that's not the right word, but I've never been drawn to when somebody is giving me a reading, telling me this is what's going to happen or who you are. Like I want to experience, right? And so through my work, I like to experience and then share with patients how they can experience, versus me talking to their spirit guide and telling them, which I don't do, by the way. I don't know how to do that. But that's the part, the skeptical part. So that's just for how I function, right? I'm a kinesthetic person. Like when you talk about spirit guides, question is, you have spirit guides. Are you connecting to other people's spirit guides? Or is it just your spirit guides? And is there anything out there to, because I hear this a lot. People talk a lot about spirit guides. So it's just because you've had experience. I'm coming from curiosity here. This is not, and I want to change the tone of it too, is I'm just really curious. Like, how do you know you're not just hallucinating, imagining things, that you're talking to a spirit guide? Like, what's it like?
So The- we're going to get into something deep here. So we have a lot. We actually understand. You and I share a lot of the same beliefs. And remember what I said at the beginning, that I don't really believe in the telling the future and the whole psychic thing. So it's more about tapping into your consciousness. So I'm able to do that where I'm able to tap into someone else's consciousness and really help them uncover who they are. So your spirit guides, essentially what you can think of it as, they're not separate from you. So it's not like a spirit guide or an angel is somehow outside of you. It's within you. It's within your consciousness. So they are communicating within you. So I know that might be hard to maybe grasp, because we think about, as humans, we think about things being outside of us, right? We're in a 3D world where you've got all your books behind you and you can actually see them. They're there. We think of them as being separate from us, but they're actually, your books are not separate from you, because it's all consciousness. And we see that through science, that everything is created. There's cells and there's atoms in everything, and everything is energy, and it's all created, or it's all connected. So your spirit guides are the same thing. They're not outside of you. So it's really about, when I'm working with someone, really, do I communicate with their spirit guides? Not probably in the way that probably other people talk about it. It's more about, I view it as I'm communicating with their consciousness, maybe their higher self, which is spirit guides. Now, are there people that might come through that maybe are connected to them, that maybe a grandfather or grandma or something like that, that is in the spirit realm, the unseen world, might come through and give messages, but everything is connected. So it's never separate from you. It's already within you. And I know, again, that might be hard to grasp in the very beginning, but that's just how consciousness works. And that's how we actually are seeing it through science, through quantum physics, that everything is actually connected. So science and spirituality are actually probably a lot more similar than people realize, because we are proving things. We're proving that everything is connected. So if that's just my philosophy on it with the spirit guides, I don't see it as separate from someone. I see it within you.
And to build on that, so many of the guests talk about consciousness and share this idea that we're all connected. And so is it really, when you talk, because if we're all connected, like at the end, when the ego, I'll talk about Jill Bolte Taylor's episode 6, because I just listened to another episode of her on somebody else's podcast. I enjoy listening to her. She talks about where the physical disappears and she became part of everything, right? And she came back from that. So it sounds like that's almost, to me, I'm understanding that these spirit guides are a way to communicate, because nothing's really separate. It's not even it's an illusion to think that there's spirit guides, because everything is just oneness. When you really go into the idea, which is how some people are tapping into other, because this seems to be the illusion, they say, what we're experiencing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay,
Yep.
good, because I'm not clear yet. Glad it does for you. So
We're both learning.
yeah, so but you're tapping into something and you're giving people some tips, I guess, during this human experience, so they can, I believe everything we're doing is to find our way to remember ourselves again, that soul aspect of ourselves, that consciousness part. So we're constantly leading ourselves back to that. And when we have moments of that in the present moment, I've experienced, my patients experience, there's books written on this, there's just a sense of peace because the resistance is dropped. And I don't sense a spirit guide so much, but sometimes I feel like inspired thought comes through me when I'm no longer in resistance, and it's exciting, and I just feel that I'm being supported in it, right? That's how I
Yeah.
experience it. I don't have a clear, like, imagine a big tall blue entity having a conversation with me, for example. It just all of a sudden feels like something just came through me when I'm in this really cool place of, and I'll call it fully present, or just the resistance is dropped so flow and receptivity can happen. Is this kind of what you're talking about then, but just using different language around it?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's what's important, is we have to remember words are just words.
Right.
We can use whatever words we want to, and we can attach meaning to them. And so the brain is a filtering system. And so when you're having some sort of spiritual or energy experience, it's filtering through your brain. So you might see something different or have a perception of something different than someone else does. So there's that as well, you know, but I absolutely, I see your side of it too. And I'm very open to all of it. It doesn't necessarily, you know, have to be that if someone thinks it's a spirit guide, it's a spirit guide. If you believe that you're just with oneness and everything is you and you're not separate from anything and everything, then that's what you believe. And that's the beauty of this experience is that we get to really believe what we want to believe and live our lives the way that we want to and resonate with what we resonate with. And so, but I mean, really everything is connected, nothing is separate. And so we are seeing that through science. So absolutely, I'm definitely on the same page as what you're talking about.
And then what's your approach? So when somebody comes in, they're looking to grow their family. What is your approach and how you introduce them to your work? Because you talk about integrative. So I understand you have your tools of acupuncture and Chinese herbal medicine, right? So you have that. You've trained in NLP, hypnotherapy. You're a coach. You're a medium. You can do spirit baby work, which I don't totally understand that one yet, but what I do understand is that you're connecting to the future baby, the baby that hasn't manifested physically, this, right?
Yes.
So tell me how when somebody comes in, it's a two-part question, is what's your approach? And do you have like in my practice, some people come to see me for just acupuncture and laser. And some people know about the energy psychology work and they come for the full meal deal where they want to work on mindset, fertility mindset, subconscious. But a lot of people just come in for the acupuncture and laser. Are you at the stage where you have to do it all, or you just meet them where they're at? Like kind of how are you treating and how do you work with patients and incorporate this into your practice?
So it's very similar to what you're doing. And that if people want to do just acupuncture and Chinese medicine, then that's what we do. And I do have patients that I see that are in situations like that. And then also I have a whole fertility program that which is an integration of all of it. My whole philosophy is that you are more than your physical body. And so when people come in, of course, if they're wanting to just do acupuncture and Chinese medicine, I'm still integrating things into that to really help them with their consciousness. And what we know from Chinese medicine and acupuncture, it's very much a spiritual medicine. It's very much based off of energy as well as the elements and how it really cycles with the season and the energy of the earth. And so I always ask myself the question, how did people from thousands of years ago be able to develop a medicine that's absolutely so incredible without any sort of diagnostics? Well, a lot of it has to do with intuition. It has to do with energy. So I think people back then were probably much more dialed into listening to themselves and really getting the answers from within than going from outside.
Because of your talent, I'll call it, ability, spirit baby, medium, how do you explain and talk to women that are miscarrying or don't end up getting pregnant? Or does everybody end up getting a baby that sees you?
Most,
Okay. But not all.
not all.
But yeah. So, and I want to clarify, so I'm setting you up for success in this or more for the patients that are listening, is I'm always worried about triggering. And what I find, our inner child, right? We take an experience and for some reason we really blame ourselves. When parents get divorced, when we're young, it's our fault, right? When our parents are angry, it's our fault. So it seems to be a pattern that somehow it's my fault. And so when I have these conversations, I'm always concerned that the way it comes across, it gives them another reason to blame themselves. So I just wanted to put that into our discussion to make sure we're sensitive to the listeners, because I don't want to give them another reason to blame themselves, because I don't think there is any reason to blame themselves. So how do you have that discussion? Because when people say, why don't I get pregnant? I don't know. And my approach is I do everything to nourish the soul, to support them for the physical vessel. And so they are able to have emotional resilience and get to that place of presence and not attach to form and outcome. So whether they have baby or not, they're okay. They still want the baby, but they don't have this over attachment to it. But I can't say whether they're going to get a baby or not, because I don't have that access to know why some people get babies and why people don't. I don't get to talk to the spirit babies, for example. So I'm curious if somebody's not going to get pregnant, do you know that? If somebody is going to get pregnant, do you know that? And what's your track record for predicting that? Or maybe you can't predict that because I don't know how much you're able to predict.
Right. Well, I definitely can't predict how somebody's journey is going to go. I can see that if there is a baby or babies attached to them, and that if they want to come into the physical experience. But as far as when that's going to happen and how that's going to happen, I absolutely cannot predict that. That's not my decision to be able to, that's only the person's decision.
So when you say it's their
Absolutely.
decision, what are you meaning by that? Just to clarify.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, 90% of what we think about is in the subconscious mind.
Right.
So we could consciously be saying, I want a baby, but in the subconscious mind, there could be some sort of limiting belief there or some sort of trauma or pattern that is like what we know in NLP, which is neuro linguistic programming, which is of the subconscious mind, reprogramming of the subconscious mind, as well as hypnotherapy. And so these tools can really help us to identify where people could have limiting beliefs that could actually be holding them back from creating that desire that they have. In this case, it would be a healthy pregnancy. And so I use these tools to be able to help people to tap into that. And you do as well, which is very powerful. And we know that. So, but what I mean is that it still is up to the individual. So you have to put in the work too, which I think sometimes these things can be painful if people start going into trauma patterns, limiting beliefs, then, and it's not that way in every situation. So I don't want to scare anybody that's listening and thinking that, well, if I go into my subconscious mind, what's going to happen? Well, the only way to be able to manifest what we truly want in our life is to be able, we have to go into those parts of ourselves that we really maybe don't want to, but it doesn't mean that it's going to be totally ugly. It might be for some people. It just really depends on what's going on, but you have to do the work anyway. It's the whole point of why we're here in this experience.
Well, we'll talk. It's nobody's fault. Agreed.
Yes.
And I think I find it's the fear of what it may feel like is worse than what they experience. And, so many teachers of consciousness say, it hurts going in when you put in the program and it's uncomfortable coming out when you activate it. But it is work. It's not like, I love
Mhm.
Einstein's quote, everything should be made as simple as possible, but not too simple. So conscious work is simple. This stuff is simple, but not easy. If it was easy, everybody would do it. So you have to be able to feel your feelings, and some say you got to feel it to heal it. And if you have a good facilitator, people usually are able to release these trauma patterns, as you call it, or energetic patterns that don't serve them, these old programs. But it is work, and there's a playful aspect. I know in my practice, it's quite playful when we do the work, and I'm quite comfortable when patients have their tears, right? I mean, I think of Gordon Neufeld. He's been on our podcast. He's a local attachment therapist here in Vancouver, and he talks about those tears of futility and how sadness is such a transformative feeling, right? For you to be able to adapt. One more quote from an author, Michael Brown, who wrote the book, The Presence Process. Really fun book, by the way, Lindsay, if you're into those kind of books. But it really stuck with me when he said, you're not trying to feel better. You're wanting to get better at feeling. So it's not about it's not about positive, this and that. It's about being authentic. And when you can feel your feelings, and really accept them and feel them, they act as portals to presence. And what happens is this sadness becomes beautiful. Like it's sadness still, but you're observing it, and the resistance goes, and it's like you love the sadness. It's crazy. And then you're into a whole other experience. So you made me think of that, that it is work. It's not scary, but I get that people are scared to do it. I know when I came to it, I was like, oh no, what skeletons are there? And I didn't even know what was there, but I was just like, there's gotta be something really bad back there. Right? You know what I mean? Like, when I first, who's going to go into, what are they going to do? But, you have full agency. I know when I practice, they have full agency and their subconscious brings up stuff that they're ready to deal with. It's pretty amazing how that works.
Yeah. And the other thing to remember too is I love all that is too that we really manifest what we ask for. So if you're asking for solutions on something, you're going to start meeting people, getting books, maybe support groups, things are going to start coming in that are really going to give you solutions. And so I think of the universe as almost like a puzzle or a masterpiece. And so different things come in to create this masterpiece essentially. And that's like what your life is. So things filter in to create something else. And so when like I said, when we start asking, I need solutions, you're going to start having things come in that are going to give you those solutions. And so, yeah, I mean, we have to make change. If something's not working, there's a reason why it's not working. And so we have to figure out what piece is missing to
Right.
be able to have success in anything that we're really trying to manifest. And the universe responds to our emotions. It doesn't necessarily respond, it doesn't respond to our conscious thoughts. It responds through the subconscious mind. And so whatever you're feeling, that's what you're going to get. So if you're feeling a lot of lack and doubt, then you're going to manifest lack and doubt. If you're in a vibrational frequency of joy and happiness, which is often what I tell my clients to do, is that start something that you really like or do something that really brings you a lot of joy. Maybe not focusing as much on the fertility journey and focusing more on you, and then just allowing it to actually come in. And so when we start living in those vibrations of happiness and joy, which are much higher vibrations than things like guilt and shame, then that's when things start opening up for us.
Yeah, that like attracts like. So I really want to say this again. I want to repeat what you said because I think it's so important, is shifting your focus from what you don't have
Hmm.
and focusing on what you want to have as if you already have it, or doing things that bring you joy. So start to do that now. So don't live into the future like, when I have this, I'll be happy. Start creating the happiness now, the joy. And I mean, this is a simplification of it, but you have tools that you offer, Lindsay, to help people develop these frequencies, these vibrations of peace, of joy, of gratitude. But that's the key. And we're not saying you deny what's going on, but there is a focus shift. And when that focus shifts, then your vibration changes, and we can measure that too. You know, for our audience,
Mhm.
we've had guests talk about this psychoneuroimmunology, PNI, which some have extended it to PNEI, psychoneuroendocrine immunology, meaning your thoughts and your feelings affect your nervous system, your hormonal system, and your immune system. And so when you use fear, lack, and doubt, when you have those feelings, your body's in alarm, and you start to release the cortisol and the adrenal hormones, and over time, they lead to inflammation and impact your immune system. And when you bring up joy and peace and gratitude, now you're releasing the serotonin, dopamine, oxytocin, and those are different hormones and have different effect on cells and turn on other genes for health, creativity, and reproduction. So this isn't woo-woo out there. Like, science has caught up to the traditional medicines, and they can measure and say, yeah, this is true. And I want to repeat, we're not saying, oh, you can't, you have to think positive. That doesn't work. You said that.
Oh,
It's a feeling. So if you have affirmations, but inside you feel lack and doubt, the universe or your subconscious, that is, you're lying to yourself, and those don't really work very well. You have to embody it. And again,
yep.
there are practices to get you embody it. So, and they're simple. And as I
Yep.
said earlier, not always easy, meaning they're simple, they require discipline. And because if they didn't require discipline, then everybody would do it, but they require discipline. So thank you for that part. Can I
Absolutely.
geek out a bit with you and just, we always, for my listeners, and Lindsay knows this, the podcast is like you and I having coffee, and I have my beverage here, and people get to listen. So I'm curious how you do this in your practice, and I'm happy to share, as in big picture. Like, I right now, currently, it's about an hour with my patients when I do the conscious work, and they get needles. I use low-level laser therapy, so they get the laser systems on them as well. And I have vibroacoustic sound tables. I just got them a week before we recorded this. So that also has an impact on the nervous system. There's a little bit of research for fibromyalgia and trauma. I mean, just that experience, right? And I even have a toy called the Neurovisor, which has some brain engagement and neuroplasticity impact.
Nice.
And I'm there for an hour. So usually when I just do AccuLaser, I'll run 2 or 3 rooms because I can go to different rooms because they sit with the needles in, and I leave. And I do my conscious work. The needles go in the lasers. I turn on my toys to help reset the nervous system, get them into parasympathetic and alpha brainwaves. And then we're working. I'm there and we're working. I'm not a counselor or therapist, so it's not talk therapy. It's a form of conscious work, a form of self-hypnotherapy, if you want to call it. That's kind of my approach as of this recording. I'm curious how you're set up.
Right, absolutely. Great question. So I would say it's about 50-50 for me. So 50% probably are doing just acupuncture. And I only see one client an hour. I don't do multiple rooms. I do spend a lot of time with them. I do consider myself an intuitive therapist, although I'm not a licensed therapist, I'm a life coach, but an intuitive therapist. So I'm really, I want to know what's been going on, maybe what happened from the last time I saw you, really working through maybe some limiting mindsets. Of course, an acupuncture session is not necessarily going to be a full therapy session, but I do give my clients a considerable amount of time to sit and really check in with them. I think it's important because we do see that, in everyday life, that maybe they're not always getting checked on. Maybe someone's not always really asking how things are going and really working through some of these things that they're working through, especially in a fertility journey and pregnancy as well. Maybe someone that's had a difficult time getting pregnant or has had miscarriages, or maybe there was some birth trauma with the first baby that they had. And so first time moms too. And so, it's important to remember all of this. As far as the other part of my work, I see people globally. I see people all over and really being able to help them, not only with fertility, but other life situations. So I would say probably about 35% of my work is fertility focused. And then the other part of my work is going to be helping people that might not be trying to get pregnant. Maybe they're trying to create a business or they're really lost in their life and they're not sure which direction to take. So I do help a lot of different people. I love to have that diversity, but as far as the acupuncture appointment, I would say that I don't have all those extra things. I love what you're doing. I'd love to maybe think about that in the future, having some of those things into my.
Come for a visit before you do it. You got to
I
experience it.
know, I
But
really
but
should.
but I wanted to know, like, I'll clarify the question because you're talking about your demographics, and as of this recording, I used to be almost all fertility. I'm about 50% fertility, and 50% are relationship issues, financial career issues, or other
Okay.
things, right? So doing the conscious work, and I'm just curious the logistics of when somebody comes and sees you, they get the needles, and then you're in the room with them, and you're using tools like NLP, you're using hypnotherapy, visualize like that's what I'm imagining. So your sessions are about an hour then, right? And
Right.
some will
Mhm.
they'll have needles, and like you, I see people around the world virtually, like we're doing here over Zoom,
Mhm.
where I'm just doing the conscious work. I don't get to do needles or anything, right? Because we're virtual. So in your sessions, if I understand it, then your sessions are all about an hour. Am I understanding that correctly?
The acupuncture sessions are about an hour. When I work with people virtually, those are 75 to 90 minutes.
Okay.
So I do more conscious work in those sessions because that's more of what we're focused on. But in my acupuncture sessions, I include some of that, but they're there for acupuncture. So I need to have time for that as well. And that's also what they want. So I don't, for acupuncture, it is going to be 60 minutes, but I see them for the full 60 minutes besides the time that they have the needles in. And to answer your question, just to add a little more, I do use crystals. So I use
Okay.
crystal healing in my sessions, as well as I'm really into brain waves and different hertz of sound. So I use different kinds of brain waves, music, dependent. I really am a huge fan of theta. Those are my favorite. So I definitely use that music in their sessions as well. So it is a combination of talk therapy, NLP, hypnotherapy, acupuncture. Sounds like we're doing a lot of the same things. I just don't have some of the tools that you have.
Because I'm a boy, they always say the boy with his
Right.
toys, right? I like my gadgets, and I have to share, like, people go, you got the coolest gadgets, but I buy them for me. Like I buy because I want them, and then I'm like, this is awesome, and then I buy more and I share it, and I share it with my patients. So first I get one, and I'm like, this is awesome, and then I try it, and a few of my staff, admin people, like, and then I get more. Like I go on site to the IVF clinic, and so the neurovisor I bring, and I can set it to a 5 minute session, a short blast, and they're like, when you're burnt out, you're tired. Like there's two programs. There's hundreds of programs with this, but there's two that I use when I see the nurses. One is like you can't focus and you're daydreaming and tired, and one is where your mind is you can't focus but you can't turn it off. Like you are so overthinking, and so they get and then one person said I felt like heaven came into my head. Another person said my brain just got tickled. But after they're like, like I'm a new person, like their brain's refreshed because it's literally shifting the brain that we spend an hour
Yeah,
doing. It's a brain shift. And I will clarify, I like my toys, but I believe that you have to develop the tools. Like you and I teach the tools because you got to do the work. And
yeah,
these are just catalysts. I like things that help. Who doesn't? Like I don't want it to be difficult. I want it
right.
to be as easy as possible and as enjoyable as possible. So I find tools that can help with what we're doing to support the change in the brain, the neuroplasticity, the brain waves, getting you out of the alarm system. So, anyways, let's go back to your approach there. So, my understanding is that you see more than just fertility. You do it online too. And when you see people online where it's all coaching with your energy tools, that's 75 to 90 minutes. When you see people in your clinic, I understand that you're with them anyhow. So you're only using one room and it's the focus is acupuncture, but you just can't help yourself and you bring in the tools
Right.
and talk to them, right? Because you just want to help them. The part two to that question then is what happens if somebody wants the energy work and the needles? Is it still an hour? Or do you do a 90-minute sessions with the needles?
Well, so I can very much design a treatment based on what that particular client or patient needs. So yes, we can definitely have longer sessions. If someone is, for example, having an IVF embryo transfer, then I probably would do more energy work with them along with the acupuncture because we know that, to receive an embryo, there is an awful lot of anxiety involved when people have that happen. Some people, when they're in when they're in that situation, may have had failed transfers, and so maybe this is their first time. But we do know that the uterus, when it is relaxed, it receives the embryo better, and part of the reason why acupuncture is so great in that too, right before and after the embryo transfers. So the energy work is really powerful because if the body is feeling that when the mind, whatever the mind is telling it that, hey, we're going to get pregnant, things are going to go well, then the central nervous system is responding. And so that is making it so that the body is not tense. And so we want it to be as less tense as possible so that we have those success rates. So that would be a great example of a situation where a treatment might be longer than the 60 minutes. But some people have very busy lives, and 60 minutes coming in can be a lot. And
Yeah.
so, it's different when you're doing a virtual session because you don't have to leave your house. So you're probably more open to having a 75 or 90-minute session versus if you're coming in for fertility acupuncture weekly or a couple times a week, depending on where you are in your journey, that might be a lot to come in for more than 60 minutes for some people. So I
Yeah.
try to keep that in mind too.
Yeah. Very, very, very smart of you. Very kind. Is there a preconception period that you recommend? Like, is it like, hey, I can talk to your spirit baby and in one session remove your blocks and you'll be pregnant next cycle? Or is there working on the physical and making changes to hormonal profiles, inflammation,
Mhm.
mitochondrial health? Like, do you have an idea where you coach saying, this is a period of time that you would expect to be under my care to support you to help you optimize your fertility to reach what I call that peak fertility potential?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, as an acupuncturist, and we both can agree. I'm guessing that we typically would like to see 7 or 8 months of work if we're just looking at the physical level and preparing your physical body for healthy pregnancy. But people typically are not going to do that. They generally want to get pregnant. They've been trying to get pregnant, hasn't been working. And so it really is dependent on the situation. Now, if someone has had, now I'm talking about physical stuff, I'll get into the energy in a second. But if someone has had multiple miscarriages, for example, and if there is some sort of gene issue that reason why, there might be something that they need to work on physically to be able to help their body physically to receive a healthy pregnancy, working with other doctors, immunology, things like that. And then also, if someone has endometriosis, there might be some treatments that might need to happen to be able to prepare the body. So there might be extra work that we're looking at just if we're thinking about the physical on diet, supplements, acupuncture, different treatments that Western medicine might be integrating into the holistic therapies. As far as if we just have an unexplained infertility, we don't really know what, there's no diagnosis there, then I would say 3 months generally is
Mhm.
what I
They
recommend to
say, yeah, and they
people.
say follicular genesis on average is 100 days. So that'd be
Right.
four ovulatory cycles. So 3.5 months or 100 days, right? So you get four follicular phases. You shared like on the physical level, you're treating autoimmune issues and hormonal imbalances, inflammation, gene issues, which is a real small percentage. But you mentioned, are you seeing, because I don't see changes in gene issues. Epigenetics, yes, but not like a gene issue where there's an issue. You just said that. I wanted to catch that to make sure. Are you changing
Yeah.
genes or that?
No, that I guess I used the wrong word. I used the wrong word. I was thinking more of the lines of immunology.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to clarify. I was
Yeah.
like, cool. Can you?
Yeah,
We're gonna
absolutely.
study
Yeah.
you.
Sometimes I just like I'm energy channeling and things come out and yeah, so thanks for correcting
I'm
that.
listening. I'm listening to you.
I love it. You're a great listener. I love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Well, because some things I'm like, I can't do that. You can,
Yeah, no, I can't do that either. Energetically, like maybe, but yeah, no, yeah.
well,
Yeah.
energetically, I mean, we have our limitations. Anything's possible. Because, like you, I know before I even ask this question, I have seen things I can't unsee. I've seen things that make no sense from a medical perspective, that are impossible from a medical perspective. But we're just not, I'm not, and we're not at a place at this time of this recording where these things are easily reproducible. But
Mhm.
medicine journals have all kinds of understanding of these types of healings, right? That are not totally understood. The body's amazing; it can do some healing. And you're familiar with Joe Dispenza because I'm going to quote him.
Yes, love him. Yes.
Got some great books, by the way, people. If you listen, if anybody knows him, I'd love to have him on the podcast.
Hmm.
I've gone to three of his 1 week retreats at the time of our recording. He talks about, it's the slower process is using matter to change matter. That's what you're talking about now. Take some
Right.
supplements, will, change your diet. And then he says, and it's like instantaneous when energy can change matter, right? Like when you,
Right.
and so I'm curious to hear about what you see with the energy approach.
Right, absolutely. Well, Joe Dispenza is wonderful. I would say he's definitely a mentor for myself and many, many people. But it's interesting because our body is always listening to the mind. And so when we are telling ourselves something, either on a conscious level or subconscious level, most of the time it's subconscious, our body's responding. So our cells are responding. And that is mostly what Joe Dispenza talks about, is that when we start to rewire the brain, things start to change physically. And so do I see that with people's in their bodies and their experiences in life when they start to do the work? Absolutely. They start to physically get better, they feel better. I mean, I healed myself of dyslexia and ADHD. So there's things with that too, as a kid, and that's a whole nother conversation about learning disabilities, which I really don't think they're learning disabilities. I think it's just you look at the world differently than, say, the population of what we think is how we should look at it. So, but yeah, you have the power to be able to heal yourself. It's just really tapping into that and really being able to utilize those tools and learning how to use them. And how do you do it? Well, through working with mentors and people that know how to do it and teach you how to do it. I don't even like the word guru because I'm not a guru. I'm a guide that shows you how to do it. It's not, I don't know everything.
Everybody has, from what I'm learning with talking to so many amazing people and interesting people like yourself, is we all have this ability, but like everybody's born with different levels of that ability, but anybody can learn it because it's all inherent in us. And
Right.
so it's a skill set. You can get better at it, or I'll use it where you can get more practice at it, how to hear it, how to listen to it, how to tune into it. And this sounds like what you do in like Joe Dispenza, he's got great meditations, workshops, and then you have your approach and you had that experience like as a child you noticed you could hear or tap into things and so many adults can remember as children that they could do this and then then society, our parents, school, knocked that out of us, right? Like taught us not to tap into that innate higher self. And and now it seems like as a collective more and more people are tapping back into it and there's more and more teachers of consciousness like yourself that are supporting people and facilitating people how they can re-tap into their higher self, that inner healer that has so much wisdom, and beyond the material world, where what we call miracles is just like it's just how it is in the spirit world or in the energy world, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, once you learn how to do it, once you learn how powerful you are, you do get more humble about it
Yeah,
because you just realize that, well, I did that.
yeah,
That's how
yeah,
powerful I am because
yeah.
I'm not separate from everything and all that is. I am one with the entire consciousness. And so it's beautiful. I think it's a beautiful time to be alive in this experience, to see the integration of science with energy and to really see everything blossoming. I mean, do we have a long way to go? Absolutely. But there's so many more people that are becoming in alignment with this way of thinking and really blossoming from the inside out and then wanting to help other people to do the same. And so it's incredible. I'm so excited to be able to be here in this life, experiencing this time.
Well, Lindsay, I'd like to let people know where they can find you.
Right.
So your web and anything on Instagram, and we'll do our best to put that in the show notes as well. And then any just remarks you want to share with our listeners as well, just if I might have missed something that you think is something that you would like to share that I didn't get to ask you. So first, how do they find you?
So I'm located in Denver, Colorado, but I see people virtually, as we already discussed, from anywhere that you are. So I can help you. As far as website, I do have two websites. I have one that's local to Denver, and then I also have another website, which is garnetmoonlove.com, which you guys said you'll include in the notes.
Yeah, I have that
I
link. So garnetmoonlove.com, and that's definitely, I see it on our note table. That's going in the show notes.
Great. And then I also am becoming more active on social media. So I started a new podcast. It's called Fertile Frequencies, which is going to be an integration of everything I talked about. So definitely about the physical, but also talking a lot about the energy side of fertility. And there will be healings. I'll have experts on there too. So maybe you could be on there at some point, Lauren.
Let's set a date after this. I love to share and geek out. As you can see, I get quite
Yeah, I
passionate and
know.
excited about my toys, but it'd be fun because we resonate so much with some of the styles that we do that yeah, I'd love to share and have you chat with me with your audience.
I'd love that. And then I do offer a consult. So if anyone is interested, not quite sure what they're looking for in their journey, we can talk, and you don't have to necessarily book a session if you don't know what session to book with me.
Okay,
So
great.
definitely feel free to do that. You can do that on my website. I guess like a last thing to say to everybody is I just want you to know that everything that you need is within you, and you do have the power to create the life that you truly desire. And it's all there. It's just really unlocking it and feel empowered, knowing that you are the one in the power, and just really surrendering to trusting yourself in your journey, even in those tough moments.
Lindsay, thank you so much for joining us on the Conscious Fertility Podcast.
Thank you.
All right, I just wanted to add to the episode here. Lindsay was great. I had fun with her. Hope you guys enjoyed the conversation we had. And as you saw, I got excited and I geeked out about my neurovisor and my vibrational acoustic sound table. We've put some information on that on our website under how we treat and what we treat. You'll see nervous system reset, and I think under how we treat, you'll see a link for the neurovisor and the sound table, or just contact us if you want to include that in your treatments. And again, wishing you all the best. Thanks.